season two, I was like cheering while I was watching. I was like, hell yeah! Here comes Matt and the Heroes of the Horn. I was very
So,
excited about that last episode.
okay. So what
And
what reasons other than episode 8 in general do you like season 2 overall more than season 1 overall in as opposed to Tristram and I?
all right, so you know, I'm trying to divorce it as much as I can from my expectations based off of what the books are and what this is. Um, and there are parts that are inconsistent when it comes to some of the things that have happened mechanically. As far as like the show and why I think season two is better, um, biggest reason for me is one, like I said, I really like villains, and the villains really came out fighting in this season. Whereas we only saw Shamael basically in the last episode of season one. So there wasn't the other villain presence, I guess, was Fane, but he wasn't really made known as a villain until the last episode as well.
Hmm.
So since we had very strong acting from a lot of villains, um, it made me really feel good about this season when it came to them having something solid to fight against instead of like this ethereal kind of notion that there's something going on. And I get it, it might just be a problem with the way that book one is set up, but I just thought season two had much, and I one of the things I noticed too, um, Ishamael had a bigger role in season two than he had in book two, so we got to see him more, which I thought that was pretty interesting, and I like that
I
they
did
utilized.
like that, but I just didn't like the way that they did that and the way they departed from the books and how they kind of are approaching the relationship between average people and Forsaken differently and having everyone make secret alliances with Forsaken. I didn't like all that.
Well, they are anyway. It's just not visualized in the book.
But not anywhere near to the same extent as they have it happening in the show, especially with the main characters, I would say.
Oh, you mean like Rand and Selene?
And Min and Matt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't think it hurts the show in any way.
I think it does. I think it ruins the way that the main characters are supposed to react to with the Forsaken. They're supposed to you know, definitely not be working with the Forsaken.
Well then, Rand has an ulterior motive when it comes to land fear. He's trying to
Yeah, but he
manipulate
doesn't.
her.
Also, he doesn't work with her in the books. That it's weird that that happens in this season.
Not directly, no.
He
Um,
does work with her,
but she helps him in the books in subtle ways.
but not in anywhere near this way. I wouldn't say, or anywhere
Like
near
one
as
of the things
direct of
she
a way.
helps him with the most is in book three. At the end of book three, she actually fought with another Forsaken to try to protect him behind the scenes. So that was
Did
like
she? I didn't
completely
remember
behind the
that.
scenes.
Okay,
Yes,
but I
because
mean, like, obviously, none of this stuff happens in the books. I mean, the stuff that's happening in season 2 of the show.
which stuff? Like you mean the
The
dialogue
stuff with the
and
stuff with Rand working directly with Lanfear after he's found out that she's betrayed him.
um. Well, here's the thing. The character Rand does work with the Forsaken directly. It just wasn't Lanfear.
Yeah, but like they're ruining the way that this relationship is supposed to work.
I don't know if I would say that it's being ruined.
I think it is. In the same way they're ruining the way the main characters are supposed to be interacting with the Forsaken.
Uh, I'm not sure if it's like ruining. Like it's just because they talk to these people doesn't mean that their characters are ruined. Like,
But they have been scheming with them.
why wouldn't what was Rand scheming exactly?
He was
Like,
scheming with Lanfear to help him take out Ashamil. And then
well, that
obviously
actually that
Min was
he
scheming with Ashamil to get Matt to Fama. I mean, obviously she went
and
back a bit, but that's still nothing like anything that happens in any of the books.
in the last book, Rand employs Lanfear for his help to defeat Ashamil.
Okay, but like nowhere near this early in the series. The way that they're doing it in the series is ruining the way that this is going to carry out, especially in comparison to the books.
Not really. Once Moraine and Lanfear
Yeah, it
die,
is,
it's not
man. They're
really
gonna
that bad.
wildly depart from the books. They already are.
I'm not okay. So your basis of it being ruined is based off of its departure from the book. I'm telling
And
you, in my
also, more
world,
importantly, like
that's not a
departure,
factor.
not just departure from the books, but departure from the books in a way that is worse than the way it happens in the books. Like the way, as we've discussed before, the reason I like episode 4 of season 1 more than any other episode in the season is that it's a major departure from the books, but it's to me a way better than what actually happens in the books. All of these, like most of these changes that they made in season 2 have things, even if they have things happen in a similar way, it's in a worse way than the way that they happen in the books.
I don't know. Like to me, it doesn't matter that much.
It does
Like
though. It does. If it's
no,
better,
it
that's
matters to
fine, but it's
you.
not better. It's worse.
Well, here's the thing. Episode 4 of season 1. To me, whether it's aligned with the books doesn't matter. I just like it
It
as much
does
as
though.
because it's
The
entertainment.
series is based on books. If you're not going to pay any attention to the books, especially if you're going to do it in ways that makes the story and characters worse, then why are you even basing it on these books?
Okay, well,
An
one,
adaptation
this
is
is not a
still
complete
supposed to be an
product.
adaptation. It's not supposed to be some totally different thing. I mean, I can understand changes for sure, and I think I'm more forgiving of them than a lot of people are, but obviously much less so than you are.
It's just I'm not bothered by it. I'm not. To me, I'm not as invested in it as you guys are. That's what it seems like.
Well, did you like the Halo show?
I thought it was okay.
No, terrible.
Right. Like I'm not that invested in it. Um, like I said, I got these adaptations, and I'm not that invested in how far it copies the original material.
But they're supposed to be adaptations. Should they even be adaptations if you if you
Well,
don't
you gotta
care how much
adapt
they
it.
depart from the source material? Doesn't it matter
Yeah,
whether
they're
they're
not.
good or bad improvements in comparison to the source material? That's what matters to me.
Yeah, an adaptation is just that. It's adapting it to a particular media, particular audience, particular time period. Like for instance, there's this anime that I just watched that's based off of a book that's 1972, and it was completely adapted for the year 2020. So
Yeah,
one of
I
the
mean,
things,
I understand that, but not the same thing. We're talking about a lot of things to do with mechanics and plot and storyline. Like, and this
Yeah,
sort of
I know, I
storyline,
understand what you're
it could
saying.
still take place in different time periods theoretically.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but people who watch TV um, typically don't care about the intricacies of
But
mechanics.
people who have read these books, like me, think, what was the point of making this an actual adaptation if it's not very similar to the books?
Well, that's because like I said, um, it just depends on tastes.
Yeah, obviously.
Like to
We're
me,
having a
that's not that
subjective
important.
conversation. I know we're having a subjective conversation about our instinctive emotional reactions to a show. I'm not mad about it or anything.
Yeah, in this case, I don't. When it comes to TV shows and movies, I don't get that upset about changes.
I'm not
When it comes to other
upset.
things,
I just don't like the series as much of you because of the changes. I wouldn't say I'm upset.
well, yeah, I'd say it doesn't rattle me. It doesn't. I don't know how to say it. Like I don't have any investment. Like for me, if I don't have an investment in something, then I won't have any type of harsh reaction to something being changed.
So
Like,
like no matter how much of a departure it is, like the characters could be different and the
here's what I
Forsaken
would be
could be the
upset with.
heroes and
I
the heroes could be the Forsaken and
like
there could
here's
be
one
no
thing.
magic system and people could fight with guns instead of swords and it could be science fiction instead of
Yeah, yeah.
fantasy. Like it
Here's
doesn't
here's
matter
what
at
I'll
all.
tell you. Not that much. Here's what I'll tell you. If somebody tried to continue the wheel of time and I saw the things that you're talking about happen in a book form, I would be pissed off.
But not for the TV show.
Nope,
Jeez.
not
But
really.
it's they're based on books.
Yeah, but I still got the books. Like, you can ruin the TV show,
Like
quote unquote, all you want.
but they're based on the books. They're the show's supposed to be something like the books if it's based on the books.
Well, here's a couple things. Like when I watched the Harry Potter movies, there were a couple scenes that I wanted to be in those movies that weren't.
I
Um,
know, but
I did not.
The Harry Potter movies are way more similar to the books than so far the Wheel of Time show has been to the books.
Yeah. Well, I get it. It's but they dedicated more movies to the books than they have episodes to the Wheel of Time.
They have more time in 8 episodes of 8 seasons of a TV show. Although I guess wait, no, because they're covering way more
The Harry
books
Potter
than
books aren't that long.
it might be. I don't know. It might be roughly equivalent because like 4, 5, 6, and
Uh,
7 of the Harry Potter books are pretty long. But I mean, I don't think any of them compare to Wheel of Time books, other than maybe book 5, but the fifth and sixth Harry Potter books compare to some of the like shorter Wheel of Time books, but certainly nowhere near some of the longer ones.
well, I don't know. I'm just like not that upset because I have the books. Like if the books got like if some
So why
author
watch the show? Why
decided
watch the show then if the books are so different?
just to watch it.
How's that a reason?
Well, one, I knew the Halo show was going to be nothing like the game or the books because there was no book or specific game that they were adapting.
Why not just make it like some other new awesome, like in terms of Halo, some other awesome new science fiction series with all these changes that wouldn't piss people off as much. And the same thing with Wheel of Time. I think it would be a better show if it were not an adaptation. And I don't think that should be
Well, if
the
it
case
wasn't
with
an
an
adaptation,
adaptation.
I probably wouldn't watch it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, there's a ton of fantasy shows I just don't have an interest in. Like, I haven't seen a lot of different fantasy shows, and then they just had some random one called whatever, whatever. I
But
probably
that's
wouldn't
what
watch
this
it.
one is. That's what this one is. Whatever, whatever.
Yeah, but at least it has some connection to something I'm familiar with.
But not much.
I think there's enough.
I mean, like,
Not for me.
okay, let's get given. Let me give an example of like an adaptation that a lot of people hate that I actually like, the Hobbit movies. I like the Hobbit movies, even though it's a way stretched out version of the Hobbit book, especially if you watch, because if you watch the extended edition movies that are even longer, they do include a lot of stuff that does not happen in the Hobbit books, but stuff that happens in the appendices, for example, and they include scenes that happen off screen in The Hobbit and stuff. But in my opinion, they did it in ways that make things more entertaining and still at least somewhat make sense. To me, like some of the changes they made in the Wheel of Time show are not that entertaining and don't make sense.
Well, when I watched the Hobbit movies, I just felt that there's some parts that were so bloated that it became boring to me.
More what, sorry?
That they were so bloated that they became boring to me.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah, I
wasn't
wasn't bored.
like because one of the things I remember about at least the second movie, I was like, dude, this smog scene is way too fucking long.
Yeah. It was cool and epic though. I mean, I know it doesn't happen in the book, but I don't know. Maybe the part of the difference too is that it's
I thought,
supposed to be
yeah, I
like
just
a
thought the
fairly
pacing
it's
was
supposed to be a
bad.
fairly simple children's story, and they turned it into three epic fantasy movies.
Well, I just thought the pacing wasn't very good. Like,
I agree with the pacing in terms of movie one in particular, but even like to me, especially the third movie, again, especially if you watch the extended edition, I think Battle of the Five Armies is actually really cool. It has tons of stuff that doesn't happen in The Hobbit, but it has all sorts of awesome wizard battles and more epic battles and ridiculously cartoonish violent stuff that is nothing like the books, but I just like it more.
um, yeah, the Hobbit. The things I didn't like about the Hobbit is it was just too long. To be honest, I just thought the three movies were just too damn
I get that.
long.
But
And
they're still more entertaining to me than season 2 of Wheel of Time in particular.
um,
I'd rather
I don't
rewatch
know.
the Hobbit movies so far.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would go that far myself. I just found, um, yeah, just to be too long for me.
You should watch
Uh,
the extended edition of the Battle of Five Armies. It's like constant
well,
awesome
okay,
fantasy
so
battles.
in the extended edition, did they give Bjorn more time, or is it the same friggin' scene at the end of the movie?
Oh, where they barely have him, you mean?
Right.
No, they have, well, they don't have him a hell of a lot, but they definitely have him like, he's like barely in a shot in the movie, but he's at least in there for a few minutes, I think, in the extended version.
Yeah, because that kind of, for me, the movie was less climactic than the actual book was.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see that. I
And
just
like I
like
said,
well,
I'm
especially
really,
one of the
really
things that I
about
like the most
endings.
is that they actually showed the battle of the five armies. To me, that's a change that actually makes it better because in the Hobbit book, Bilbo just gets knocked out and then he wakes up and they say, "Hey, this awesome epic battle of five armies just happened. Too bad that you missed it. Sorry."
Well, I don't remember it going like that. I remember in the book they
It
do
was.
describe like a back and forth between, oh, and they started losing, and these people showed up, and oh yeah, we're winning now, but no, these people
But
show
they
up,
don't
and now we're
show
losing.
any part of the Battle of Five Armies. They don't show any of it in the book.
Well, I know they talk about it.
A little bit, but they don't show anything. That's why I like the fact that they showed this awesome epic battle.
Right. It's great that they showed the battle. It just I felt more climactic in the book than it did in the movie.
Mm, I don't
As
know.
I remember in the book, they're like, oh yeah, Bjorn shows up and he's like destroying, and then yay, we win. And then in the movie, he shows up for like 5 seconds. I was like, really? That's it?
Dude, in the extended edition movie, he shows up for longer. There are all sorts of like massive trolls and shit, bigger but more bigger enemies, more bigger heroes, more bigger weapons. I told you there's this like cartoonish epic chase where people are a bunch of the dwarves are going on this like sleigh type thing that's sliding down a frozen river, and they have a giant crossbow turret that they're firing at enemies and trolls that are chasing them and shit like that.
Okay. Oh yeah, I just remember that when watching the three movies, that even during the battle scenes, I seem to remember thinking that even some of those were too long.
I definitely never thought that.
Yeah, I was like, man, this is going on for a while. Like Jesus
You
Christ.
feel that way when you watch
Um,
John Wick?
um, no, because in John Wick, it seems like every encounter he does is like really unique, and the set pieces are pretty interesting. I felt like when watching The Hobbit, like I was watching an inferior Lord of the Rings. It seems
Oh,
like
I
more.
certainly, I certainly agree. I certainly agree with that. But I still liked a lot of the combat in the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, and I remember being like, I don't know which one of the movies it was, but I was like, man, this is ridiculous. It was like one part where they're like riding barrels or some shit. I was like, Jesus, they're like drawing this shit out as
Oh
long as
yeah,
they can.
yeah, they ridiculously amped up the barrel riding thing. I mean, some of that was
Yeah,
cool
so
though to me, even though it was cartoonish. Although, I mean, I didn't like this whole thing with Tariel being added and shit like that. But I mean, some of her combat was cool too. I don't know.
yeah, just
Anyway, we don't need
um,
to we don't need to get all into the Hobbit movies. I think I'm probably gonna get going. We've been talking for a while.
yeah. Like as far as like season
We just
two
have we
goes,
just have different opinions on season
it's
two of Wheel of
okay
Time.
for
Nothing
me.
wrong with that.
I was just saying it was okay for me, and um, it didn't like phase me so far.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, I
thought
mean, like I was
some
saying,
changes
to
were
me
like
the finale
unfortunate.
saved the show for me, but I still like season one overall. But yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things too is like I'm still holding out hope that they can correct wrongs. Like if this was a full season and I've seen everything from beginning to end, then I might have a different opinion if they didn't correct
You mean,
something that happened.
you mean series?
Um, I'm saying if I had watched the whole series and there were
Yeah.
things that weren't corrected, then I definitely have opinions.
Okay.
Like it's like the difference between I've watched the entire season of Game of Thrones
Hmm.
and then putting certain seasons in perspectives makes me really not like certain seasons only after having watched the entire show.
But you can evaluate these things differently. You can evaluate the entire show and also each individual season.
Yeah, I get that, but yeah, it's just sometimes I change my opinion depending on how these things fit in as a puzzle piece.
I see that.
So it could be that this puzzle piece actually does fit in horribly in later seasons. It may not, or it may fit in even better than I expected. But as far as like the ending of the season, I thought they did a pretty good job um, with that ending,
Okay.
and it gives me hope for the next season.
Okay.
As
Fair enough.
in last season, that ending made me very skeptical of whether they can do anything right.
Yeah, I know, me too.
And I think they got some things right in this last episode that make me feel okay with whatever they're going to do with season three.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna watch season 3. I might have less patience for it than season 2. We'll see.
We'll just have to see what they're going to cover, what they're going to leave out, because they're always going to have to leave something out. They don't have enough time. But they if they are covering season four, I am going to be extra critical because or book four because book four is my favorite book
I know. Yeah, I
in the
remember.
series.